What is going on, everyone, on this very lovely Tuesday evening? Welcome into the Undercovers podcast. I am Connor alongside the two co hosts, Ben and Paul, and we have a lot to celebrate. We beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday afternoon, and it was the greatest win we could have possibly had against the Kansas City Boogeyman. We not only
Oh, jeez.
beat them, we put belt to rear in the fourth quarter, and it was the greatest thing I have ever seen. Josh Allen with the 21-yard touchdown run to end the game.
26.
26. Well, it was best. It was, oh my God, I can't even talk about it. It just got me going. It got me going. I'm fired up, right? I'm fired up. That was a statement win. You beat the Chiefs. You made them look human again. And now all the world's looking at the Bills like, oh my God, we're finally for real. Josh Allen's finally getting MVP discussion. Now everybody knows who Khalil Shakir is. Oh my God. Couldn't have gone much
Vibes are
better.
the highest right now.
Only way it could have been any better is if Taron Johnson got a pick six on Patrick Mahomes. I might have fainted in my chair if that happened. Okay. Like he did good. He did
He
exactly
did.
what he needed to do. That's Taron Johnson. But oh my God.
Hey, how
The
about
vibes are high.
the
Vibes are
Bills'
high.
two captains coming in clutch? We
Yeah.
told Kansas City
Oh,
fans that
Terrell
the
Bernard,
Bills'
man.
defense is different with Terrell Bernard and Travis Kelsey, 2 catches, 8 yards. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that just seems like that would be his lowest output of the season and probably in quite some years. So he shut down Kelsey. He had the game sealing INT, which was just a beautiful play. And yeah, the Bills, they poured it on. And what's even better is we'll get into later. They did it without a lot of key pieces. And
Mhm.
one of them include Matt Milano, who hopefully will make his return on Sunday Night Football versus the 49ers. Of
Yep.
course, Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid were not playing, and Dwayne Carter should be back, but we'll get more into that later. First, we're going to discuss some very interesting rankings we got here because the college football
Oh,
playoff
boy.
rankings have came out, and I don't have too many problems with them, but you can see there are some clear biases going on. Number one, it just seems like it's all Big Ten and SEC teams in the top 10. Actually, the
Gross.
only team that's not an SEC or Big Ten team in the top 10 is Notre Dame, which I think Notre Dame probably is about ranked fairly. I mean, they might be a little high considering they lost to Northern Iowa, but they have looked dominant the last several weeks. So, I mean, the committee are giving them their props. But how about 4 of the top 5 Big Ten teams and Georgia? After everyone thought they were dead to Ole Miss, and somehow get this, Ole Miss beat Georgia, yet Georgia is ahead of Ole Miss. The math isn't really mathing to me. Now, some people were critical of BYU being a top 10 team and sliding all the way to 14 after that loss, which I don't really have a problem with because the Big 12 doesn't seem as strong this season. Colorado, though, is starting to make some noise. They're at number 16. And I think the one team that's a little underranked to me is SMU. How is Miami
Mhm.
ranked above SMU right now? I think SMU has looked more dominant in almost every facet of the game. Boise State's at 12, which some people have some complaints about, but they did handle. Um, they did handle, or they didn't handle, but they had a very close loss to number one ranked Oregon. And I know Oregon almost lost, but they didn't. And Oregon has actually already clinched a spot in the Big Ten championship game, which means this Sunday's, or sorry, I'm still in NFL mode. This Saturday's matchup in the shoe will most likely be for another spot in the Big Ten championship game. But Penn State really doesn't have to do anything else but sit back and put their feet up and eat popcorn, they're pretty much
Yeah.
locked into the playoffs, it seems like, because they're at number 4, even though, I guess they did lose very close to Ohio State, but, their last 2 games are against Minnesota and Maryland, and barring some unforeseen circumstances, they should have a ticket into the dance and, potentially get a bye, which is interesting. And Ole Miss, I mean, hotty toddy, they're looking very strong right now. They just got to go to the Swamp, which I know the Swamp did take care of LSU, but LSU may have been exposed for being a little bit fraudulent. But I don't have too many issues, just other than maybe have a couple other teams other than Big Ten and SEC
Yeah.
teams in the top 10, but that's pretty much par of the course for college football playoff rankings anyways, as me and Connor know.
We are
They
not
definitely
ones
don't
to.
have ACC for some reason, but let's
I
get
wonder
into
why.
our NFL topics of the night. And today, the Jets, it seems like they keep jetting. They fired Joe Douglas, which I follow quite a few bit of Jet pages. I listen, to a lot of Jets content just because it is it's very entertaining to say the least. I'll say I definitely get a lot of enjoyment over some of their meltdowns, but I do also like the ball talk from them, and it seems like they're kind of 50-50. Some people said it was a complete look of dysfunction for them to fire Joe Douglas, mid-season after doing the same to Robert Saleh, and the team has pretty much imploded since firing Saleh. But others said Joe Douglas should have been fired. Look, his record, I believe, is 30-54 overall, or maybe 30-64. It could be worse. I don't have it exactly in front of me, but he did kind of butcher the roster construction. He missed on some critical picks, which resulted in them having to go out and get an old Aaron Rodgers. And this year, everything went south. So it's pretty much going to be another rebuild for the Jets. But that leads into our quick take. Connor, at the moment, and we saw last night, another fifth straight loss in a row for the Cowboys. Who has it worse right now, Dallas or the Jets?
Is there a yes answer that I can give? Because yes is the appropriate answer for both teams. You are both in the muck and you both have no future. Can you imagine? Actually, you know what? I am going to say Cowboys. You know why? And Ben, you in particular are going to love what I'm about to say. Kinda. You might. Paul, you won't. You ain't in this yet. You know what's
Okay.
going to happen? You know what worst case scenario is for the Bills and the rest of the AFC East, but the best thing to see, because Ben and I could have probably called this from a million miles away. Aaron Rodgers finally leaves. They decide to go full rebuild, build the entire team around Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis takes off and becomes one of the AFC's top quarterbacks. You know what? I build that offense around him, give him Brees Hall, somehow keep Devontae Adams. You have Garrett Wilson. You just keep stacking a defense that's kind of been underachieving. You actually protect Jordan Travis, unlike Aaron Rodgers, and at least they have some hope for the future. The Cowboys, I mean, you've got to I don't even know. There are no words.
See, I'm gonna quickly just be on the opposite side of the fence. As much as I would like Jordan Travis to be something, there's a reason he was drafted in the 6th round.
Yeah, his leg got
And
broke.
well, yeah, but he wasn't going to be a first-round pick. He lacks prototypical NFL size, arm strength. I mean, now there are guys who have proven they can do it, but you also have to look at it from this perspective. It's going to be a whole new regime for the Jets, and I don't think they're going to be banking their jobs on a late-round quarterback that the previous regime selected. Now, it could be a feel-good story, and, I mean, maybe he ends up working out, but I have a strong suspicion they're going to be selecting a quarterback very high next year. And at least Dallas, look, I've given Dak a lot of flack recently, but after kind of just sitting back and, taking a step back and looking at it from a wider lens, you can see that their problems go much deeper than Dak. Now, Dak may not be the top 5 quarterback some are claiming he was after last year's great season, but at least they have a franchise quarterback locked up. They have CeeDee Lamb. I don't know what's going on with Micah Parsons, but there's some talent on that Cowboys team. Like, I know there's still talent on the Jets team, but it
Yes,
all
there is.
starts with the quarterback. And I would
Mhm.
I would much rather have Dak Prescott going forward than whatever the Jets have at quarterback. Um, but let's move into our Bills conversation right now. And
Didn't we have
starting
another
off,
quick
what did
take?
we?
Didn't we
No,
have
I
another
think that was
quick
the
take?
last one. I think
Was
that
it?
was
Yeah,
the
that was
last
the last
one.
one.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that was
Yeah.
quick. We finally did the quick takes quick. I know they're normally
Well,
more
yeah, we
like
did
long
for
takes,
once.
right? But the Bills beat the Chiefs as you mentioned earlier, and starting off with what did we learn from that game? I'll give my take because I wasn't. I know it was a great. They played a great defense, and at times I was a little critical of the play calling, but to me, I think we learned that the Bills defense can shut down some of these top offenses when they're at full strength. I mean, I know the Chiefs haven't been the best offense this season, but it's still Patrick Mahomes. They still have weapons, Travis Kelsey, and they've been able to run the ball this season without Pacheco. And there were situations where Kansas City had a third and short, and the Bills were able to force them to punt. They created multiple turnovers. They had multiple sacks on Patrick Mahomes. It seemed like Rousseau and Oliver were really living in that backfield. I mean, Ed Oliver, I know we were a little critical of him last week on the show with Ryan, but he must have heard the show because he
Mhm.
came to play and it didn't really show up in the stat sheet, but he was constantly disrupting Mahomes in the backfield, creating pressure. And I mean, the Chiefs I know their tackles are a little suspect between the combo of Juwan Taylor and whoever the hell they decide to play opposite him at any given week. But I mean,
Yes.
between Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney, and Trey Smith, I mean, that's one of the best interiors in the league. And the struggling Bills interior were able to create some havoc that game. So I think, to me, I was impressed with what the Bills did defensively.
Oh, yeah, me too. That first play of the game,
Yeah.
the pick to Taylor Rapp. Oh man, they got the pressure and they forced Mahomes into a bad pass, and then bam.
Mhm. To me, what I learned a few things about this Bills team on Sunday. I think the obvious one is that Josh Allen is not human, and he is for sure right now should be the MVP. He just took hero ball cape to himself in that game. The Bills were without, Spencer Brown, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman. It came down to really, Josh Allen, the run game, Shakir, and hopefully Samuel
Shakir.
turns into something. And what this game showed me is that, Josh Allen should win the MVP
Hmm.
just based off what he did against the Kansas City Chiefs. What he did against the Kansas City Chiefs just flat out was Josh Allen. This is probably maybe the first few times you've seen it this season where Joe Brady and Sean McDermott both agree, let's go for it on that 4th and 2. Because in most cases, maybe in years past, Sean McDermott is 9 times out of 10 taking the field goal there, what is called the field goal of death. You're up 2, you kick the field goal, you're up 5. You feel comfortable, but you also feel uncomfortable. You kick the field goal there, they decide they not to. They trust Josh Allen, and Joe Brady. Joe Brady in his press conference, I believe yesterday, he said that it was a call. It was based on zoner man, and where I kind of surprised where a timeout wasn't called was probably when he was explaining the play, is that they were expecting man.
hmm
The Chiefs played zone, and just depends on what type of zone they would probably call the timeout and scratch the play and find something new. Josh immediately snaps the football before Joe Brady or Sean McDermott can make a decision, and he just takes it himself. He saw the opportunity to take the football for the first down, but he also saw it he can take it for a touchdown. 2, the Bills can play with anyone in any role. No Spencer, Vandermark had a solid game. Torrance locked down Chris Jones.
Yeah, no sacks allowed in that game, surprisingly,
No
against a pretty
sacks.
good Chief
Only
front.
4 hurries. Only 4 hurries allowed. No Keon. Samuel balled out. I mean, yes, you only had 5 receptions for 58 yards, but that one touchdown that he had in that second half, that was a crucial touchdown and a must-have touchdown in a game in small margins. And then 3 is this team is battle tested. I mean, they put 30 on the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
that's the first time the Chiefs allowed 30 since Super Bowl 57.
yeah,
That was the Eagles, right? That was the Eagles Super
Yes.
Bowl. Oh man, we've come a long way. I don't think we're putting up 30 points of Ken Dorsey. Just saying. You want to know something interesting that I just happened to think of? Did you guys notice that for the past couple of weeks we've scored exactly 30 points? It's like 2 or 3 straight weeks. We've scored exactly 30 points. Is that not the
Yeah.
craziest stat? Like, yeah, we're getting 30 points, exactly 30 every time. Ain't it just something special? We get to immediately at exactly 30 points, we win. And it doesn't matter who it
you're
is.
right. That is 3 weeks in a row. That's a great observation, and that's a 5th consecutive week that the Bills have scored 30 or more. So, I mean, the offense has kind of been rolling recently, and that, is impressive considering that they've been without Amari Cooper for, a couple of those games. They've been out Keon Coleman the last couple of games as well. And Dalton Kincaid missed Sunday. So, I mean, even, I know a lot of people said the weapons could be a weakness for this team, but that hasn't been the case. I mean, if anything, you see guys like Matt Collins showing up. Dawson Knox has made plays the last several weeks in the passing game, and I think he needs an expanded role even when Kincaid comes back. And someone else who I'll talk about in a little bit is starting to step up. But any other observations before we get into the next topic?
Bills 9-2 for the first time since 1992, and I
We're
just want to
cooking.
put this. I'm just going to put this just out there just for now. There's fans out there, of the opposing team saying that this was the Bills Super Bowl. Be quiet. This was not the Bills Super Bowl. Yes, we're 9-2. We're celebrating this massive win, but this isn't the Super Bowl. You look at what the Chiefs did the prior week. They walk off, blocked field goal, and you're seeing all those players celebrate. You could celebrate after a massive win, but also not be satisfied. And that's what the Bills are right now. They took the 24-hour rule. Even though they're on their bye week, it's still the 24-hour rule. They're not satisfied. And you look at how the players looked in the press conferences, on Monday and on Sunday after the game. After the cameras came off and they walked into the press conference room, they were locked in, they were dialed in, and they were ready for the bye week. And they're ready for San Francisco. So it's all eyes on San Francisco now. And this game's at this point on Tuesday night is out the window, and that celebration period is over. And it's not the Super Bowl. This team wants to play the Chiefs again in the playoffs. You heard it, you seen it. They want this team at home again in the playoffs to rewrite history of last year
and the last couple of years. And we saw kind of pretty much every facet of the game click on all cylinders on Sunday. That leads me to ask, do you guys think this is the most complete team that Allen's had between the O-line, the defense, which has played pretty solid? I wouldn't say this is maybe the best defense in terms of talent, but I think it's got the most depth. I believe the pass rush is probably one of the better pass rushes we've had under Sean McDermott. And I think there's really not any particular weakness on all 3 levels. And then between the O-line, this running game and all the pass catchers. I mean, and not only that, Josh Allen is playing the best football of his career, which I think helps. But compared to some of the other teams, like you could always find a glaring weakness on previous teams for the Bills. I don't really think they have a glaring weakness right now when they're fully healthy. We haven't seen this team fully healthy yet this season because Matt Milano's been out the entire season. Dwayne Carter was missed several games. Then we traded for Cooper, and then Cooper got hurt. Then Kincaid got hurt, then Coleman got hurt. Then Kincaid got hurt. So the team really has yet to play as a complete unit so far. And I'm excited to see, hopefully against San Francisco, we finally get to see what this team looks like in its final form. Now, I know injuries are part of the game, so someone might go down, knock on wood. But if this team can go into the playoffs pretty much fully healthy, like you mentioned earlier, Paul, I think they can play with anyone and beat anyone. Now, the Detroit game is going to be very, very, it's going to be a great test. And it's going to, I think,
Bill's Super Bowl preview.
It could be a Super Bowl preview, but I mean, it's going to tell us a lot. But as far as, is this the most complete team? I think it is.
I would agree. I mean, in years past, the Bills, have a run game, but the offensive line isn't up to par. Or the Bills have a decent offensive line, but they could never run the football. And then you look at the weapons the Bills have had. They have had some really good weapons, but they haven't been able to use the offense in the right way. They have Joe Brady, they have Keon Coleman, they have Shakir, they have Samuel, they have almost every weapon that you can imagine to play in any role. They have the offensive line, which is one of the best in the league. I believe this was the first time in about 24 games where the Bills had to change their starting offensive line. So they have had a top 10 offensive line for at least the last year and a half. Then you flip onto the defense. The defense is starting to form just a little bit more. Yes, they have been injured on defense for most of the season, but they've been able to win with those guys on the field. And Josh Allen just looks relaxed. Last year, even though we thought we had a complete team in many different facets, Josh Allen still looked a little different last year. He was playing hero ball a lot last season. You're seeing less of that this year. And that's because the Bills truly have a complete team from offense to defense in all areas of this game.
Yeah, there's only one thing, in my opinion, that they're actively missing, and that is a dominant name on the pass rush. I mean, yeah, we all know about Ed Oliver. We all know about Greg Rousseau. But you don't have a guy that everybody and their brother can go, oh, he's with the Bills now. A guy like a Chris Jones, a guy like how James Harrison used to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers all them years ago. Somebody like that would have made the Bills absolutely an over-the-top, like Bills, big gap, everybody else.
Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback because if you look at Greg Rousseau, he is putting up those type of numbers of a dominant pass rusher. They're not necessarily all translating to sacks, but they're forcing bad throws. He's helping create turnovers. Greg Rousseau has looked the part of a dominant pass rusher this year. And even Von Miller, the last couple of weeks, you're starting to look at him play, at certain times, you're like, hey, he still got it. And he had a big sack on Sunday.
Yes, he did.
I believe he's now maybe up to 4 on the season. And, granted, he's missed 4 weeks. So he's kind of had to go on ice and just pick it back up. And he started off the season pretty strong. So credit to him for missing all that time and basically picking right up where he left off. So I think, they don't have necessarily the names, even though Von Miller is a massive name, but I think the general perception is he's washed. But I think just the way he's played the last couple of weeks, that's not necessarily the case.
I mean, definitely not. I mean, he is back. He is absolutely back. But Now, it's just me wishing for everything else that could have potentially happened, like Myles Garrett on the Bills. That
Or
was my
TJ
agenda.
Watt.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. I would do anything. I would do literally anything to get TJ Watt on the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that will, or on the Buffalo Bills, but that
I was
will
gonna say
literally
he's already on
never
the
happen.
Steelers.
I
Okay,
know.
so
I know.
so I think this will probably be a little bit tougher than past weeks because, seems like every week it's pretty easy to find a standout, but
Yeah.
I'm going to give credit to a guy who really hasn't shown up much prior to Sunday, and he played a big part on Sunday, and he actually started to show up a little bit at times versus Indy, but if he can get it going, the Bills can have a very deadly receiving core when Keon Coleman returns. Hopefully that is against San Francisco. But my player of the game is Curtis Samuel. He made some
Yep.
big plays downfield.
Yep.
He had that touchdown. He's starting to show his downfield ability that a lot of us thought he was bringing to the offense when we signed him originally. And I'm just going to give credit because he hasn't really been that much of a focal point of the offense, and he really hasn't said anything or complained. I mean, part of it is that injury, but he's kind of just kept his head down and kept working. And Sunday, it finally translated to a breakout game. He scored his first touchdown as a member of the Buffalo Bills, had some crucial catches, even drew a passing interference on a 3rd and long, which I believe helped set up a scoring drive. I mean, 5
It did.
catches, 58 yards, 21 was the long and a touchdown. So, I mean, I think you really can't complain about that from effectively your wide receiver 4 right now. If they can get that type of production out of their wide receiver 4, like that is, the Bills at one point went from having a pretty mid weapon group to, I mean, obviously they don't have a Jefferson or Chase, but overall, I think it's quietly one of the better weapon groups in the league, to be honest. When you count 3 running backs who can, make plays and do their job. I mean, James Cook obviously was a big part of Sunday. He didn't have the game he usually has yardage wise, but he found the end zone twice. A little quiet game from Ray Davis, but Ty Johnson had the most snaps of Bills running backs, which it really isn't that surprising to me because he played pretty solidly in that divisional round loss to the Chiefs last year. So I definitely have to give, props to the overall roster construction that Bean has done. And yeah, Curtis Samuel is definitely my player of the week.
Someone should ask Curtis Samuel how it feels to finally have a competent quarterback throwing him the football. If you ever go through Curtis Samuel's past and the quarterbacks that he's played with, you get a very depressing list. You get a
Yeah.
guy who should
Not
have
the
been
greatest
a,
list.
a guy who is about to be a great player, who people saw him at Washington sitting alongside Terry McLaurin. Like, this guy is going to be something if he had a real quarterback throwing him the football. Oh, wait a minute. He's got the best quarterback in the league at Josh Allen. Yeah, I said it. I'm not taking it back. You saw what he did. But that doesn't mean I'm about to transition into my standout player is Josh Allen, because that's too obvious. And why would I ever do the obvious? So it won't be as I actually do have 2, but I'm going to get the other one out of the way first. It's Ryan Van DeMark. Like, that is the standout player of the game for me, at least on the offensive side of the ball. You got a guy who nobody really had any expectations for other than please just don't let Josh Allen die because Spencer Brown is out. We were all stressing Spencer Brown being out, Paul. You know that we had people stressing out. You saw the chats,
Yeah.
but you know who I'm talking about, Paul. But uh, there were a lot of people stressing with Spencer Brown being out, and they had good reason to be stressed out. Ryan Van DeMark comes in, and Ryan Van DeMark holds strong, does not allow a single sack. The whole offensive line did not allow a single sack on Josh Allen tonight, or last on Sunday, against one of the better pass rushes in the league, especially a pass rush with a guy named Chris Jones on it. That man is a freak. Like, that's the best thing that could have ever happened to us in that game. other than the fact that, well, we kind of put up 30 on them. A lot of that is definitely accredited to the offensive line keeping Josh Allen clean. So in particular, Ryan Van DeMark is my standout player of the game on offense. Now, I technically do have two, like I said, because watching that game, I noticed something very, very special, right? And that's Cam Lewis. Did you see every time Cam Lewis was on the field, he was always making a play. He was always doing something. If it wasn't, some kind of critical, third down stop, or it wasn't a critical fourth down stop, he was all over the field like a bolt of lightning, just out there doing everything he could to stop them, to stop the Chiefs offense. Like, that was what was absolutely out of this world to me on defense, because a lot of people, I guess, have been thinking Cam Lewis kind of had, maybe his first couple of good games against some bad offenses, and he kind of just faded away into obscurity. No, now he's back. Like, he did that. He did really well. It probably won't be one of the performances that show up in the stat sheet, but football goes beyond stats. It's actually, you watch games, don't watch stats. It's not fantasy in a lot of cases. So he was amazing. He was amazing. Ryan Van DeMark was amazing and won't get as much credit as he really deserves. So I had to give two here. Paul, you got one that's not
I
Josh
do.
Allen, because Josh Allen is very obvious and we could all say Josh Allen. As a matter of fact, you know what? We're all just going to say Josh Allen right now. Every
Josh
one of us.
Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
Yep. There we go.
But my offensive standout of the game was going to be Curtis Samuel. That's why I wrote down two, just in case
There
when
you
you two
go.
stole it, because I knew that was going to come.
Hey, he
So I wrote
stole it,
down a
not me.
second one, so I was prepared. The other one was Osiris Torrance. And
Yeah.
what he did on Sunday, just as you alluded to with Ryan Vandermark, no sacks allowed from the entire offensive line. Josh Allen wasn't hit by Osiris Torrance, by Chris Jones. Even though he allowed 4 hurries, Osiris Torrance just stood in the ground and just took the battle with Chris Jones. Like, it was the better fight of the weekend. It was
Ha,
Osiris
I get where you're
Torrance
going with that.
and Chris Jones. That was the fight of the weekend, and Osiris Torrance won, and he dominated that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Oh, he
I was
absolutely
going to
did.
say, he kind of made Chris Jones look a little bit like Mike Tyson with how he was playing.
Oh, my
Mhm.
God.
Looked a little slow on Sunday.
We had to go there. We had to bring it up. It's fine. It's totally fine.
CBS didn't
He
buckle,
brought up the
so
fight,
that
so
was
I
good.
just, he was like, he threw me an alley oop basically. But let's
He
get
had a dunk
into
on it. There you go.
the Bills. Exactly, that was a great assist. The Bills they're over halfway through the season, but we have not yet done our team awards. So I'll just do all 4 at the same time. Starting with
Oh,
MVP, this is obviously obvious, but without Josh Allen, the Bills probably would be,
mhm.
competing. I mean, they still have a good roster overall, but you know how important the quarterback position is, especially with how Josh has played this season.
Oh,
They
yeah.
might be competing for a wild card spot, but they would not be in contention for the number 1 seed. And
Nope.
Allen's played at an MVP level this season, so
Mhm.
it's more than fair to have him be the team MVP, even though that is very obvious. My rookie of the year, which I might be biased, but I still think he's been the best rookie overall, is Keon Coleman. He's just pretty much, it did take him a couple of weeks, but he stepped in almost seamlessly and has been now a focal point of the offense. He went from someone people thought would maybe be a silent contributor, make some plays here and there. But if he wasn't hurt the last couple of weeks, just how he was playing, I mean, he could have potentially made a run at 1,000-yard rookie season. Now, with 6 games left, or however many games are left, I think it's 6, right? It's
Should be.
definitely
Yeah.
possible,
6.
but he would have to have like 100 yards a game, which, I mean, maybe he does it. He was playing at a really high
He's
level
great.
before that idiot Jordan Poyer had to ruin our
Oh,
fun the last couple of weeks. But next would be the offensive player of the year. I'm not going to choose Josh Allen just because I already chose him for MVP, and there could be a couple players you could choose here, maybe even someone from the O-line, but
mhm.
the last several weeks in this season, he has been cooking, so to speak. So I'm going to say just let him cook the rest of the year,
Oh, I know where you're going
because
with that. Yep,
James Cook,
yep, yep.
right now, he's tied for
My
third in
boy.
the NFL in rushing touchdowns, which is surprising considering he plays with a touchdown vulture who steals all of his touchdowns at the goal line or
Yeah, that's
whatever
right.
with the tush push. But already he has 11 total touchdowns on the season when you include his one receiving touchdown. Now, that more than I believe, let me just check his receiving stats. Yeah, that is more combined total touchdowns than he has for his career in the previous two
Mhm.
seasons and just this year alone. Because he had 5 receiving touchdowns going into this year and 4 rushing touchdowns. He's already doubled his career rushing touchdown output, and we still have 6 games to go. I mean, it's
Mhm.
possible he could end up with like 15 rushing touchdowns. I don't know, receiving touchdowns. It's looking like he may not get the amount he got last year, even though he did leave a lot of meat on the bone with like 4 or 5 touchdown drops last year. But I think Cook is the obvious answer for offensive player of the year. Defensive player of the year, you can go in a couple different directions, but I'm going to be biased and select Terrell Bernard because their
Yeah.
defense has been different with him in the lineup. Um, they've only lost one game with Terrell Bernard in the lineup,
Mhm.
and that one game he
Was a
was
fluke.
playing. It was a fluke, but he was playing with his hair on fire basically from start to finish. So I got Terrell Bernard as my defensive player of the year so far.
I'll make mine sort of quick here because I agree with you with
Yeah.
almost every single one of them, but defensive player of the year.
Okay.
Uh,
Uh-oh.
Josh Allen, we all know is a team MVP. He had 0 interceptions through week 1 through 7. We know that. Keon Coleman, he's flat out rookie of the year. The only competition he has
Mhm.
probably on this team, if Carter didn't get hurt, it would be Carter or Davis. Davis is having a great rookie season, but
For
we
sure.
use
Oh,
Keon Coleman
it would
more
be
in
Ray
the
Davis for sure.
right. So, and then offensive player of the year, James Cook is flat out having a career season, one of his best
Mhm.
seasons he's had in Buffalo. So, obvious answer for offensive player of the year. I mean, it could also go to Khalil Shakir, who's having a
Yes.
wonderful
Mhm.
season this year.
Yep.
That's not a
But
bad
James
answer
Cook,
either.
James Cook is just having a historic year on in his career. So it goes to James Cook. Defensive player of the year, I'm going to give it to Greg Rousseau. You know,
Okay.
Yeah.
I
he
thought
leads
about
the
him, to be
league.
honest.
What?
I thought about him. I was thinking about it. That's a good
Yeah.
pick.
He leads the NFL in tackles for loss. He has 5.5 sacks this season, which leads the team. He has a 17% win rate, edge run win rate this season, which tallies him 18th in the NFL. I mean, Greg Rousseau, entering this season, we labeled it as an important season for Greg Rousseau, and he has
Mhm.
just lived up to that important season. He's fighting for a contract either this offseason or next offseason. So this was a really important season to follow up a really good season last year was to find the consistency in his game. And I think he has finally found it this season. He's just been flat out awesome to the Bills defense.
Yes, he has. Oh, he has. Oh, I love it. I mean, we got that guy, or we're going to have that guy that everybody knows about as an absolute wrecker on the front in Greg Rousseau. Like he'll be James Harrison at some point, and that's something that excites me a lot. As long as he's James Harrison on the football field and not James Harrison off the football field, I'll take that instead. So, all right, my turn. My turn. So, all right, to refresh the memory, it is MVP, offensive player of the year, offensive rookie, and defensive player of the
Offensive
year,
player of the
right?
year, defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, MVP.
All right, all right, all right. So MVP is the obvious. It's Josh Allen. I don't need to say anything more other than if this team went and lost Josh Allen, they would not be 9-2. They'd probably be a 6, maybe 5-win team right now if they didn't have Josh Allen. So that's all you could say about MVP. I mean, he's the GOAT. That's him, all right. Rookie of the year for me is also Keon Coleman, and that ironically isn't a biased take. He literally has been the rookie of the year for us. I mean, definitely he's got competition from Ray Davis, and he would have had a whole lot of competition from Dwayne Carter if Dwayne Carter never got hurt, because Dwayne was playing out of his mind.
He was great.
Like, he has been incredible, and I cannot wait until he gets back. I cannot wait. And he should hopefully be back by the time the 49ers come to town, the beaten and battered 49ers. So my rookie of the year, Keon Coleman. Offensive player of the year, yeah, I kind of want to say James Cook. I also want to say Khalil Shakir, obviously. I also want to say Dalton Kincaid, but Dalton Kincaid's kind of, he's been how everybody was saying at the beginning of the year, he was the focal point of the Bills offense, right? Well, they've looked at him so much that he's kind of become just standing there. Like, they just look at him all the time, trying to make sure he doesn't get away. And I know a little bit of that has to be related to scheming on the offensive side of the ball, to why he can't seem to get open sometimes. But for offensive player of the year, I am going to stick to it, and I'm going to go with Khalil Shakir, just because he is literally the old reliable on this team. When Josh Allen heaves it deep, he's saying, screw it, Shakir's down there somewhere. And Shakir will haul it in pretty much every single time that he gets the ball thrown his way. And that's why he's literally old reliable right now. And defensive player of the year, oh yeah, the bias is coming right out of me right now. It's Taron Johnson. You can't change my mind. I don't care. He got hurt, and the entire cornerback room went to complete garbage. I do not care. I mean, yeah, you had great moments out of Jamarcus Ingram. And yes, I know I talked about Cam Lewis earlier, just being a freak all over the field. But you cannot tell me that the backfield of the Bills did not be like a disaster with Taron Johnson not on the field. Like, we didn't have him for the game against the Texans. If we had Taron Johnson on the field against the Texans, we probably win. I'm not sugarcoating anything. If we had Taron Johnson against the Texans, we probably win. So,
well, I'm surprised you didn't mention this, because I did mention it with Bernard, how the Bills have only one loss with Bernard in the lineup. They have zero losses with Taron Johnson playing this season.
See?
So
I mean, everybody knows me by now as the ultimate Taron Johnson fan. And if you don't, well, now you do know there is not a bigger Taron Johnson supporter and defender out there than me. So, yeah, Taron Johnson, defensive player of the year. I'm taking it to the bank. Let's move on.
There's some notable mentions I think we missed on defense. You could go Ed Oliver, you can go Von Miller.
I don't know about Ed Oliver. He's got one sack this season, so I would say maybe pump the brakes on Oliver.
Maybe not Oliver.
Von Miller. Von Miller is definitely worthy of consideration. What about Christian Benford? He's had strapped on almost every receiver he's played. And you know what? This might be a little controversial, but every week Dorian Williams has gotten better. I know everyone saw what Marcus Whitman posted, who's coming off the field for Matt Milano. Obviously, they're going to play Milano over Williams, but do we maybe see some looks? Obviously, not a lot, because you still have Taron Johnson. You never want to take Taron Johnson off the field, but
no, you don't.
Could you possibly see 3 linebackers at some certain personnel packages? That could be a possibility, or maybe they just want to, rest Milano, play, just for injury concerns, and play Williams more on, running downs and Milano more on passing downs. I mean, there are different possibilities.
I would. I absolutely would. I mean, you got to nurse Matt Milano back. You can't just throw him to the Wolves and say, have fun, buddy, while he's coming off of the injury he is. You cannot do that. I do not care who you're playing. You can't do that. And I'm so glad they realized that against the Chiefs, because I was so afraid if he was any kind of healthy, they were just going to chuck him in there because it was the Chiefs, like they did with Amari Cooper. Believe me, I was scared for Amari the whole game. The
And he
whole
had a
game, I was
very,
like,
very solid game.
he did, and I'm
And he
glad he
had a
did.
great game.
Now let's close the show as always with our game picks.
Oh boy,
Yes.
this is what I've been waiting
7 on
for
the
all
docket
night.
this week. We had 8 last week. We all went 5-3 last week.
Oh
Let's
wow!
go.
So I kept my
Me
lead
and
up.
Connor are
Let's
still
go.
tied. Me and Connor are still tied in the standings. Ben, you had the solid 3-game lead as we enter in week 12 of game picks. All right, the first one's on Thursday night. Browns
I'll
hosting
be
the
right back.
Steelers. The Steelers, they're trying to fight to stay alive. This is their second division game of the season. They played their first last week. They scored 6 field goals. Did they score a touchdown this week, Ben?
Yes, I think they can score multiple touchdowns. In fact, Taysom Hill looked like he looked almost. It was almost Josh Allen-esque, but obviously it's a little more impressive considering he was doing kickoff returns. He even, did some plays lined up at quarterback. He had a couple receptions. Like, he's literally a do-it-all player. And my suspicion is probably after the season, Sean Payton is going to do everything in his power to get him in Denver to use him as a weapon in that offense with Bo Nix. But just after seeing the Browns, I'm kind of a little off on Cleveland. I wasn't that high on them recently, but I don't think they got a chance. Yeah, as much as I like Jameis Winston, I don't think they got a chance against Pittsburgh. They might be able to keep it close, but give me Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh needs to score a touchdown for me to give them some credit for their win last week. I mean, they have to score a touchdown. I mean, they scored 6 field goals. Chris Boswell leads many different top players in fantasy points this year. Just imagine that. I forget how many players he's ahead of in fantasy points this year, but Chris Boswell has been amazing for the Steelers. They will score a touchdown this weekend against the Browns.
I think they'll score multiple. I mean, speaking of offensive player of the year, you could make an argument that Chris Boswell has been Pittsburgh's offensive player of the year.
Yeah, imagine that. If this was a Steelers-driven show, he has to be your. And he wouldn't even be an honorable mention. He would just be in consideration.
He might be the team MVP, honestly.
So yeah, Pittsburgh wins this game. They score at least. I'll put it this way: they score at least 2 touchdowns in this game. They score at least 2 touchdowns, and then Chris Boswell can score as many field goals as he wants after that.
Connor.
Solid. Are y'all ready for? Are you ready for this?
Oh no.
I'm kind of ready, but also a little nervous. But let's get it.
All right. Well, first of all, listen here, everybody. Listen here. We are 9-2. We are the best team in football. We got the best quarterback in football. We got the best running back in football. We got the best wide receiver. I don't even know who Justin Jefferson or CD Lamb or whoever these other people are. We got George Pickens. That's more than enough to beat any one of these teams. I don't care who are the Chiefs, who are the Bills. I don't care. I don't even know who they are anymore because we're the Steelers. We are 9-2, and we are going to the Super Bowl. Mike Tomlin is the best coach in this league, and we're going against the Browns. We own the Browns every year when we don't play them in the playoffs. I'm taking the Browns. I mean, why did I say Browns? Back up. The Yinzer's overtaking me a little too hard. I'm going with the Steelers because the Steelers are going to the Super Bowl. You heard it here first. We're going to the Super Bowl.
Oh, my.
That was phenomenal.
I know you know how to respond to that.
I'm done. I can't.
I can't follow that up. That was amazing, honestly. But
I should have just this with the last pick. That's how we should have ended the show.
I still got that.
I
still got that dog in me.
More to say.
Yeah, we can't top that now. But is it?
Still got the Yinzer in me.
Next game pick, Paul.
Yep.
Yeah,
Just
let's
move
go to
on.
the next game pick. Dolphins Patriots this weekend. Do the Patriots finally end the Dolphins' playoff hopes? But also remember, magic number for the Bills is 2 in any combination. They can lose either to New England and the Bills win against the 49ers, and they still would win the division, even if Miami does get a win against Green Bay, or they beat New England this week, lose on Thanksgiving night to Green Bay, Bills win on against the 49ers, the Bills still will clinch the
That's
AFC
too much
East.
math right there. It's kind of hurting my brain, but I'm calling for the upset here. Drake May has been playing some really good football. I know people always do. Well, the Bills beat the Chiefs and the Texans beat the
Poser.
Bills, so the Texans are better than the Chiefs. Like everyone always does that. They beat this team, and
Oh, I
we
thought he was
beat
trying to mock
that
the injured.
team. No, I'm just saying. You know how people always will try to
Yeah.
rationalize certain wins to say we're better than this team, even though they haven't faced
Yeah.
each other. And the first game between these teams was kind of a snooze fest. But I believe Drake May still wasn't in the lineup at that point, and Drake May is looking better each and every week. And I think, every AFC East team kind of has to have their radar up for him because he's playing some quality football. And that's why I kind of wish we had our New England games early in the season, especially considering he's getting better by week, week by week. So those games aren't necessarily going to be easy, but I'm calling for the upset here. I know the Patriots just lost to the Rams and the Dolphins just lost to the Rams, but not every team matches up the same way. And Christian Gonzalez has already proven that he can stay with Tyreek Hill. And for some reason, Jalen Waddle isn't having the best year, by his measures. Now, I know Jonnu Smith has kind of started to play actual good football, and this is kind of a revenge spot, but I'm picking the upset.
Okay.
Give me New England.
All right. Now that I'm back, which game are we doing right now?
Dolphins and
Dolphins hosting
Patriots.
the Patriots.
Oh, okay. So okay, yep. I am relieved of the Yinzer. I cleansed the unholy Yinzer spirit. So let's move on. So if we're gonna talk about
Wins.
Dolphins Patriots, let's just be completely honest. It's not gonna be a contest. I think I heard Ben say that he's taking New England in an upset.
Yes. Drake May is
That's
him.
Drake May is definitely him. I mean, for sure, he's definitely a lot better than a few other first-year quarterbacks that we can mention. But at least they've got one piece to their rebuild already started, so we're now all in deep trouble. And let's just be completely honest, though. Tua Tagovailoa owns any team in the AFC East that is not the Buffalo Bills. So on that premise alone, I am giving this game to the Dolphins, and I'm definitely going to be watching the Dolphins just a little more than usual just because, they've got a really easy stretch of games coming up. I mean, they've got the easiest schedule left out of anybody. Against
True.
their toughest games are against an inconsistent Packers and inconsistent 49ers due to injury, and then you've got the Texans, who the Cowboys are not a real. You're frauds. You are frauds.
Yeah, but
Okay,
that Texans defense is legit. Like
they are legit.
It's true.
really made CJ Stroud look bad. So I mean
Yeah,
the
I
Miami
won't
defense has to
debate
come to
that,
play for that game.
and they will. It hurts for them to lose Jalen Phillips, but I definitely still think that they have all the pieces that they need to be fearsome on defense. Zach Seiler, um,
Saran
Emmanuel
Neal, Jordan
Ogba's still there.
Poyer,
Oh yeah, Saran Neal,
Terrell
Jordan
Dodson.
Poyer. Yeah, Tyrell Dodson now. Oh yeah, let's all the
Oh,
old
jeez.
Bills players because they can't beat the Bills, so they got to try to clone the Bills. Can't beat them, join them, as they say. But no, I'm still
All right.
taking the Dolphins. Paul, what's your next take?
There's an even. There's you guys are even. Ben goes New England. Connor goes Miami. There's something in the air about this game gives me an upset vibe. I
Why?
did mention the crazy math of the magic number 2 number the Bills have. That somewhat comes into play here in my pick. I would like
Oh boy,
before Thanksgiving the Bills to have a chance to clinch the division and
wouldn't
have
we
an
all though?
easy Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving night after the stomachs are filled with all the Thanksgiving goodness of food. I don't need that to end my night. So, in this sense, Drake May, it's been floated around that he could possibly be the second best quarterback in the division.
Oh boy,
If you
Oh, it's
beat
already
the
true. I already
Dolphins,
put it out
live
there.
up to it.
that's a
Take New
homerism
England
take.
in this game.
Oh man, all right,
Let
y'all are
me
gonna get
say
me.
one
Y'all are
thing
gonna
too.
get me accused
Go
of being
for
a
it. Say
homer.
it.
So you asked why I'm picking New England. Do you know who Drake May has been compared to? I know it's early,
I
but
know where you're going with this.
a lot of people have said he looks like a young Josh Allen. Do you know who currently possesses over 50% ownership in the Miami Dolphins franchise? Josh Allen. Do you know who's about to possess the
50.
other 50% ownership? Drake May.
Man, I really got y'all going after the Yinzer got let out. So now y'all are trying to match me. All right. I love the energy, Ben.
We have to try to one up it. That's we
That's a
did the
tough
Mike
talent.
Tyson fight,
I
and
mean, that's a tough one,
Ben
okay?
took the alley oop. You did the Yinzer thing, and we're making hot takes about New England. Let's go over to Chicago, who lost in similar fashion to the Denver Broncos on a walk-off blocked missed field goal against the Vikings, as they will host the Vikings this weekend in a crucial NFC North matchup.
Oh
Yeah,
boy.
I'm kind of conflicted because you saw what happened at the end of the Broncos Chiefs game, and Denver came
Mm-hmm.
out and responded, but that is now
In a
two
massive way.
demoralizing losses on the season for Chicago.
Yeah.
Minnesota has a very good defense, even though Will Levis played well at times. I'm conflicted. I want to say Vikings, but I mean, this is kind of do or die for the Bears. So I'll
Matt
actually go
Eberflus
Bears.
job on the
They,
line,
they,
possibly.
they've
Oh, it
kind of
has
been
to
on a
be.
skid, so I think the losing streak has to end somewhere, and I think it's against Minnesota.
I mean, yeah, it has to be. I mean, if the Bears somehow find a way to lose this game, then yeah, they are 100% a cursed franchise. I mean, they already are. You saw that. I mean, we all saw the Hail Mary against Washington just go right out from underneath them. We saw the blocked kick on Sunday. Oh boy, this franchise is cursed. So I really, really don't want to pick them. So I'm not going to pick them. They are a cursed franchise and they haven't gotten over that
Okay.
Washington Hail Mary. So I'm taking Minnesota. And when that happens, that's going to be the game that costs Matt Eberflus's job. You have
There's
failed on countless occasions to coach the team to actually want to play for their first round pick. And speak of first round picks, where's your other one been, huh? Where's your other one been? We know of Caleb Williams. Where's your other one been? The one that was touted so much by Bills fans because we wanted to trade up to get him. See, neither of y'all know who I'm talking
Oh,
about because
Odunze?
he's been having such an unforgettable
oh
season.
yes.
Yes, Ben got
Yeah,
it.
it's been all right. Let me just say too, though. I remember maybe March or February. I made a bold take, and
Make a lot of those.
I mean, I know I do, but I said that this one quarterback, if he went to this team, he fit their system perfectly, and he's really looking like one of the best, if not the best, rookie quarterback, and that is Bo Nix in
Oh, next.
Denver. How about
Mm-hmm.
Bo Nix? He is absolutely cooking these last couple weeks. And I remember I said he's the perfect fit for a Peyton offense, and he's really started to take off.
Next, Drew Brees, literally.
The game picks section has turned
Just a little
into an
taller.
absolute roast off right now.
Let's
Just
go.
absolute on fire. Uh in this case, let's keep the fire burning because last week, I picked Denver after they lost on a walk-off missed blocked field goal, and they just completely murdered the Atlanta Falcons. Give me the Chicago Bears just for that method of madness.
All right.
Emotional loss. Everything seems to be on the line for Chicago. They're at home. Their fans are just getting rowdy. They have to perform with, the top quarterback on their team, top overall pick of last year's draft on their team. They have to perform because the team that it seems to be the only, maybe this is not the Packers at 49ers. This was probably before the season labeled as, a really good matchup. This might turn into the most mid-off game of the weekend at 4:25 on Fox.
Oh boy. Maybe you're right. Ben, you want to go for it?
Yeah, this is kind of do or die for 49ers after losing to the Seahawks. I really haven't been that impressed with Green Bay that season either. I know they're finding ways to win, but this is a much needed game if San Francisco wants to make the playoffs. And I definitely don't want them to be on a 2-game losing streak coming to Buffalo. So I'm going to go 49ers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is a very true fact that I'm glad somebody brought up, because if they were to lose this game, yeah,
that is true.
2-game losing streak going into Buffalo. You got to figure something out because the Rams and the Seahawks are about to run down your throat for the division. So, I mean, yeah, that's true fact. And I said it earlier, I think the Packers are a very inconsistent team right now. Some weeks they'll look really, really good, even with Jordan Love out there. Other weeks with him out there, they will look like complete garbage. So I don't know how to gauge the Packers. They're either on or they're off, and there is no switch. So I am absolutely taking the 49ers in this game, mostly because I also need one big CMC game again. Like, please, don't let it be Buffalo. Let it be this one, please.
Yeah.
CMC, save my fantasy
still
team.
Happen. CMC could still happen, but San Francisco could still lose. I'm
Absolutely.
taking Green Bay in this game. Yes, it's do or die for the San Francisco 49ers, but even when healthy, they've been healthy for the last little while. They still have been inconsistent. They haven't been as good or as great to live up to the hype of this as they were coming into the season. It just doesn't seem like it's coming together anytime soon for the 49ers, and I would hate for it that the 49ers would have to enter Buffalo on a 2-game losing streak. But the Bills have the opportunity of the weather heading into next week if it stands. Let's make Rams, Eagles, Chargers, Ravens as quick as possible. Rams hosting the Eagles. Who do we got?
I'm going to go Philly. They kind of are on a roll ever since they've gotten completely healthy. I know the Rams are healthy now, but I still think Philly's a better team.
I mean, you're not really wrong, but in the spirit of chaos, I'm taking the Rams. I feel like when they're healthy, they are actually a little bit more deadly on offense as opposed to the Eagles, who are literally just run Saquon into the ground, put him in the short receiving game, and pray Hurts hits him, because everybody's looking at A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert. So I'm taking the Rams as long as they could stay healthy enough and get the momentum going with Stafford to Cup and Nakua enough, they'll win. So I'm taking the Rams in an upset.
I'm going to stick with Ben's pick. I'm going to the Eagles as well. They just been one of the top 3 teams currently right now in the NFL. They are just cruising. Chargers, Ravens. Yeah, the Harbaugh Bowl.
Yes.
Harbaugh Bowl indeed.
I don't know exactly the last time these two met, but I know at least in the Super Bowl, John Harbaugh got the better of him. I don't think it happens this year. I think this Chargers team is different. I think the Ravens team was slightly overrated just from some big wins early in the season. They still lost to Cleveland and Vegas, and I think this Chargers team is very sound in the trenches, and that's how you beat Baltimore. You basically just run it down their throat. You stop the run. So give me the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I feel like Pittsburgh beating Baltimore in a game that everybody in the AFC North realized that Pittsburgh was probably going to win because they seem to always know how to beat Baltimore is going to cloud a lot of people's judgment. Not saying yours, Ben, because you know ball a little better than most. So all I'm going to say is that I'm taking the Ravens to win the game for the sole reason that I need Lamar Jackson to save my fantasy team as well. You know what? I'm going pure fantasy vibes now at this point. The Bills don't
There we
play,
go.
so I'm at a very comfortable pace right now. So I am absolutely just picking games off of fantasy vibes. But either way, I'm taking the Ravens, even regardless of fantasy vibes, just because they need a bounce back game, and this is probably where they're going to get it.
Give me the Chargers in this one. The Chargers have been playing really well in this game. Has been playing well throughout the season.
Thank
You
you.
know, there was a report later last week where multiple teams really wanted Harbaugh as their coach in the NFC, but you know he went to the Chargers for this reason. He's had been having a really good season. So give me the Chargers in this one. The biggest game of the weekend is Indiana going on the road to Ohio State. Indiana, if Indiana loses massive this weekend, does it end their playoff hopes?
It could, but I don't think they are. I think they're going to win the game. This Kurt Signetti team is special. I don't think this Ohio State team is all it's cracked up to be. They've struggled with some mid opponents, barely beat Penn State when Penn State basically gave the game to them. You know, that 4th and 1 on Ohio State's 1 yard line, they weren't able to convert, or Drew Alar throwing an interception in the red zone. Give me the Hoosiers.
Oh boy. I'm actually going to do the same thing just because I am all about chaos. I want to see Ohio State lose. And I don't hate Ohio State. I just want to see them lose. So I'm also taking Indiana in this one.
We have a full clean sweep this week.
Wow, that means Ohio
What?
State's probably going to win.
Yep.
Sorry, Indiana fans.
You're welcome, Ryan.
You're welcome, Ryan. You look, Indiana, this is for their playoff. I mean, if they lose close, I think they still get it. They still get in, but they can't lose at least more than I want to say more than 17. They can't lose more than 17 because if they do, I don't think the playoff committee is going to look at the strength of schedule of 106 in the in FBS and say an 11-1 team gets washed against Ohio State, you don't get in. But same could have been said for Michigan last year as well.
Oh man, we were absolutely on a roll with that one, weren't we? All these game picks, we just kind of went off the rails a little bit. We're just all so happy about the Bills that things like this just kind of happen. So I'm all for that because it has been an exciting last couple of weeks here in Bills Mafia. We've been watching football literally to hate watch. We don't care. We're having too much fun.
Yes, and we're having a little too much fun tonight on the show because we try to keep it around an hour, and we're about an hour and 10 minutes tonight. So that will wrap up
Let us
this
cook.
week's very jam-packed edition of the Undercovers cast. We'll be right back here, same time, same place, next week on X, YouTube, and every other streaming platform known to man. Have a good night, and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.